Hello everyone, my name is Tiffany. I'm the Tipsy Artist. Today we are going to be painting this adorable mother and child Highland cow. So it is great to hang up all year round, and this is from some of my fine art collection, and I'm starting to introduce it into my painting kits as well. So this is what I do for a lot of my pleasure when I'm not teaching. And I had so many requests to uh, bring this into more of my painting classes. So I said, okay, we'll give it a whirl. So for the longest time, I've always been very focused on doing what I call coloring book painting, which has been just, it's very almost cartoonish with black lines around every shape and just filling in lots of solid, bright colors into those shapes to keep it very, very simple. So I promise I am going to keep it simple and easy. We have line art, and we're going to show you that here in a minute. But there is a little bit more involved in terms of length of time and texture. And so we're going to accept the challenge and do a little bit more than just the basic, solid colors and shapes. So you guys been, I think those of you who have been painting with me for a long time are just wanting a little bit more of a challenge. So that's awesome. So again, this gives you a good look. We're going to have this nearby, and we're going to switch camera views to an aerial view. I always create a traceable, which makes it very easy for my beginners. So let me give you a look at that. So this is what we'll start with. This comes with the painting kit. And again, it has the whole trace. We've got the transfer paper and the canvas and the line art and all that good stuff. So we'll be walking you through this step as well. I'll have this down here. And then without further ado, we're going to go ahead and switch camera views here. So here we go. All right. Oops. Running into all my equipment. All right. So with our kit, we have the paint that comes with it, and your brush set, and the palette knife with this one. This we have that's used with the transfer. And I've got a couple of little mixing plates here. I've got a little bit of a head start with some paint already in there. We'll get to that here in just a little bit. I'm going to put this off to the side. And you'll also have this color visual nearby too. I think that's really helpful as we go through that process. And move this. I'm getting another visual next door here for me. Okay. All right. All righty. So we've got a great start here. Let me go ahead and talk about this part of the process. Scoot this up just a little bit. All right, really important. First thing, I center the transfer paper up at the top. Let's look at that really quick. And then that's taped here. I leave the sides free and clear so that I can lift up, check my work. Also, super important is you want to make sure that the shiny part of this graphite paper faces the canvas and the dull gray side faces up. This will allow you to transfer this image to the canvas. So if that's backwards, you're going to do all this line art and you won't see any transfer, and you're going to have to start all over. So I'm going to put this off to the side for just a second. All right, so we're going to go ahead and start to trace. So I take the pencil. This is what comes with your kit as well. This is very simple. You're just basically following along with the work here. And a little bit of a shadow here. I'm gonna have paint over it, but this just kind of gives me a reminder. It's got shadow there that I'll need to work in. And a little bit of a shadow that comes around the face here. Really important are the eyes. So you want to make sure and be very precise on this part here. I'm going to color this in. So the nuance of the eye is really important. And we've got the little eyelashes that come here. The reference. Their cute little nose. And we're going to shade that in. Okay, now we've got little baby here. A little bit of this feathering in for the look of that ear hair that will come in. And again, be really careful with the eyes. Make sure those are really precise into those little shapes here. And the little nose holes here. And a little bit of shadow that happens in there. The shadow. Mm. And a little bit of shadow that happens in here too. So I'm gonna put that in with the side of the pencil. And our little flowers. This just more or less gives you a reference to where they are, because we're going to do most of this with just holding the brush on the sides. It's going to cover a lot of that sketch work, but that just gives you a good idea of placement. Now let's check to see how we've done. All right, I feel like I've got everything. Let's check again. I think so. Got both horns, the nose, that's important, the two eyes. Make sure we get those really important details. All right, so I think we're good. I'm going to go ahead and lift off here. And we can just chunk this. Now, we have a permanent marker, and I like to do some of the features with the permanent marker here. Definitely the eyes. Get those blackened in to begin with. Okay. And then we do these little guys here. Be very careful. And one there's more nostrils here. This gets to be a little bit softer up here, so I'm going to go ahead and darken the edge of the face, but I'm going to leave everything else as just more of a pencil sketch. Because you want to be sure you've got the main shapes intact here. But you don't want to have a big black line to contend with either. So it's kind of really real light sketch. All right. I'm going to do the ones here too. All right. So I feel like we're done with these two pieces. And then we have our little family of brushes here, some napkins, palette knife. So this is my mama, and this is little Buddy, and this is Little Bit. And of course, you'll have new brushes. Mine are a little bit more left. And then your palette knife. And I've got my water nearby, and you'll have two mixing plates. I've been painting a little bit already, and so I want to go ahead and use up that paint if I can. And looks like we're all set here. Okay. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and start on the background here. We're going to mix up a light gray. And keep in mind that initially all of our paint will be just getting in the solid foundation of the base work underneath. We're going to have a lot more that texture when we come in over the top with our palette knife. So for a while, it'll look a little bit flat. That's all right. Just know that the texture is coming. All right, so I'm going to take Mama and add a little bit of water here. We have some titanium white. Let me give you a visual on that over here too. So already preloaded on my plate, we've got some titanium white and some Mars black. And you can just start with little like nickel-sized dollops to begin with. I just always have a lot out to begin with because I do so much painting. And there will be a little silver foil liner at the top. If I've never opened one before, I don't know if I have anything to show you. I think I've opened all mine. But at any rate, it's pretty self-explanatory. When you open, you'll just have to lift that off, and then the paint will flow out. And you do want to make sure that you close, always keep those lids closed. That'll help preserve your paint, make it last, because these can, a little bit goes a long way in these things. You'll have a lot to work with for more than one painting. All right. So let's mix up some gray. I've got my mama brush, a little bit of water on my brush here. Push that back and forth. Now we're going to have a little dollop of the white. Little tiny touch of the black, very tiny amount. We're going to mix that in here. And then I'm going to start to go ahead and just push this back and forth, little crisscross strokes. Then a little bit of water to help it become a little bit more fluid, help it flow into the surface area. A little bit more white as you go to add some of that texture. And a little bit of white with it, kind of push that back and forth. Have fun with it, make it kind of playful. And we're going to work this all around the shape. So as I'm doing the cut-in work here, I'm going to hold the brush a little bit more like a pencil hold. That'll give me that thin line edge to do the cut-in work around the shape. And then when I'm working into more of the larger areas here, then I can turn the brush more over to the side, parallel to the canvas. This allows the biggest part of the brush to face that and gives me a bolder, broader stroke. A little bit of water, do a light wash over those flowers. And continue with that little crisscross stroke back and forth. And remember, your water really helps spread the paint, makes it a bit more fluid. Got a little hair there that's kind of grabbing it. So let me pick it up. All right, got it. And you can kind of push back and forth a little bit of white, crisscross, back and forth, little cross strokes. Feather that out. And I'm going to come around this other side. Feather it out, crisscross, back and forth. You get gentle cutting work there. And then add a little bit more black here to make it a darker charcoal gray. We're going to add this up to the side here. Work that in more of a vertical stroke. Something here, a bit more of that darker charcoal gray. Maybe just a little bit of that reference of the flower there, just because I need to know where it's at. Okay, it's very pretty. Let's go and rinse out here. All right. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to use our little bit brush and some of this darker charcoal gray to do a little bit of some line work to reinforce our features. We don't want those to get lost when we start to paint into our cow. So we worked hard on this trace and we don't want to lose some of these important features. So what I mean by that is, again, a little bit of black with a little bit of our titanium white. We're going to mix that together, get a dark charcoal gray, do a little twirl into the paint. This will give us a nice fine point. And then I'm going to go ahead and reinforce this with a little bit of water. A bit of water. Let me add a little bit more water on this to have a little bit more of a watercolor look. But very pretty and very helpful for keeping the main shapes in place here. Do a little sketch, little wiggle there across. Accentuate that shadow that's going to come in. And then we're going to make these little, feels like little parentheses, 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 and curls. It's getting a nice rough end of that. And then we're going to keep this line in place. Very gentle hand. This line across. A little bit more water. Let that water just, or that paint really just flow into the pores of the canvas. Little shadow happening there. with the shadow happening there. Here. Shadow there too. I do a sketch. All right. Got that in place. I'm going to go ahead and paint into my horns with that, more of that medium gray. And a little bit brush still. At the top though, I'm going to come with a little bit more white. I don't want to lose this shape, so I'm going to come in. Come in a little bit more darker charcoal just to keep it separate. I want to make it very contrasty next to the sky. A little bit of blue in here too, so I'm going to work that in. So in your kit, you've got some primary cyan blue. I have a little bit left over from my last class, so I'm going to go ahead and push into that here. So this was titanium white with that primary cyan blue. So we're going to get a little bit of a slate here. So I'm just going to work this in. That slate blue. Same thing here. A little bit of that slate blue. Oh, a little bit of slate blue in here too. So just that little touches of it. All right, rinse out, dry off. Now we're going to come back in with a little bit more of just that titanium white here. A little bit brush. And we're just going to work this. I need to scoot this back a little bit so I can work this little thin line over the top here. Drag that up. And come here on the side. Try to keep your brush more parallel to the canvas. That'll allow more of that white to just rest right on the surface and drag it all the way up. And a little bit of a textural scrape with this. I'm going to use the side of the brush, make sure the white is facing, and just hold it and kind of drag it across here. Light drag on there. It's a little loose, free there, just kind of fun. All right, so now we can start to work in some of the main colors here of the cow. So we have to shift over to some earth tones. So we need to make some brown. I'm going to be using my cadmium orange. Let's use little buddy. And then mix black and orange together, that will make brown. And a little bit of white to that, because we're gonna lighten that up quite a bit. How pretty that is. Then I'd also like some primary yellow. I have some left over from my last class. I'm gonna bring that over here. And then a little bit of white too. I'm gonna go ahead and start to push this. Again, try to hold the brush more over to the side, your little pushes and the little strokes kind of feel like, again, a little parentheses, that's the feeling of the shape. Little soft curls there. Smoothly going over the top there. We're going to work in a little bit more shadow here in a little bit, but and another, I just got to make it black on this. I'd rather want more white here. And some pure white. This is that hair on top. I'm going to bring a little bit here too and just make sure that we've got some tiny little wispy hairs are coming out here on top. Back in a bit more of that charcoal. And that shadow in the ear here. And a little bit of a push. And then kind of round it out, pull down, and then lift off with a light hand. A little bit of black. It's kind of dark in there. And then we're going to bring in some more of this white. And a little touch of that brown in there too. Have to work this in the base here of the cow. Just work on that solid color to begin with. So I've got some of that. This was yellow, brown, and white. Adding a little white to that. And we'll be working this into the face. Careful to make sure that we keep those shadows in place. I'll come back in with my little bit brush and reinforce with a little bit of that darker gray here. While the paint's still wet, just kind of work back and forth. And I've got a little bit of me really careful around the eyes. It's almost that tacky color. Just on the other side too. Use a little bit of water to have it flow into those spaces. Again, we're just getting our first layer of color down. Now, don't be too scared of the roughness at this point, because it is rough. We still have a lot of texture to work in. This is that first layer of color. A little white. A lot of working back and forth, wet paint to wet paint, to get that nice soft blend. And a little bit of water in there too, if it starts to get a little bit of that dry brush effect. It's a little bit porous, and you're seeing the peekaboo of the canvas underneath. The water will come in there and help that flow into those spaces. And then we'll go a little bit of this brown, and we're going to work this into the shadow here. I'm going to thin that out, so clean the brush, a little bit of water. Okay. I don't want this paint to go to waste. It's on this brush, so I'm going to go ahead and just use it up by placing it in this thick part here of the cow. So I'm just going to do a rough sketch here. Set in the water now. And then I need a little bit of some pink in here too. Now we have some primary magenta here, and I have some on my plate. So I'm going to go and pick this up. A little bit of white, really soften that up quite a bit. Very light pink. I'll rub this into the top part of the nose here. Okay, crisscross this back and forth with the brown. Softly blend those two together. Like you're making little tiny little X's back and forth. And then another little touch of white. Do a quick little rag here of the surface on the side of the brush. And let's go ahead and use a little bit to get into some of that black and redefine the nostrils a little bit to give them a little bit more shape. They've had a little bit of some overpaint happening here, so we're going to touch that up. Just like a little raindrop, teardrop shape here. That rounded part. And then a little bit of soft black line going across here. And over here, let's go ahead and reinforce our little eyes here too. And here. Oh, yeah, here, let's go ahead and do our little baby cat. Do a little touch up. I'm also going to just grab some orange. Well, that's kind of fun in here too. And just use it, not necessarily just to mix up brown, but just to have that brightness in there. A little bit of white to it to give it a peachy color. Using the lava brush again here. And little touches of it. Put a layer, we're just building those layers of texture. Little touches, and then you just kind of pull. I'm starting to build the layers here. Right. A little bit of some cadmium yellow could be nice here. A little extra on my plate up here too. I'm going to use that. A little bit of white. And that line was there to help us see the shape of the cow. We can start to come over the top with some of the lighter colors here too. Push this in, building a little layer here. And then I'm going to grab a little bit more of that brown. Put that into the shadow here. The black. Make that shadow underneath the face here to keep that in place. And that dark charcoal gray. Rinse out a little bit. And so I can add a little bit more of this white over the top. And just bring it down. Again, it feels like that parentheses, but bring it down into big sweeps, like a kind of pull. A little bit of cadmium yellow in there. And put more of that white. The gray gets in there too. It's okay. Do little tiny pulls. It kind of feels like you're starting to do a little bit of texture in here. And again, that stroke kind of feels like a little bitty curl, but the feeling is like a little parentheses. And little short, choppy little strokes. Give more of that little bit of texture. And then we're going to get a little bit more white right through the center here too of the face. Brighten that back up again. I'm gonna have to switch to, I'm getting the big bold parts of it in, but then I'm gonna have to switch to a small brush here a little bit too. A bit of that white hair that's coming in here. Nobody strokes there. That light white and this gold yellows. We're gonna move this in here too. Try to work on baby here a little bit. Little pushes back and forth. And let's work in a little bit more brown here. Get a little bit of that shadow. Let's switch back to Little Betty. I don't wear that white. A little bit peach. Little tiny strokes in here. And a little bit more white. It seems like I'm doing little crisscross strokes in here to give that texture. Taking the base with that brown. A little bit more of peach. And little tiny choppy strokes and little pulls up. And now a lot more. I'm going to wipe out that color and I'm going to go with a lot more white. Just pure white now at the top. I work that in a little more of that. Have some primary yellow. I want this to be really bright in here. So white and primary yellow. If you're playful with it, you've got some of these bright colors and you can kind of touch back in here. And it's always just the building of those little layers. Right. I'm going to get tiny here with a little bit. I also got a little bit in my eye here, so I'm going to go back over that. Rinse out. Here's a little bit more white. And tiny little strokes here over the top. And we have our brown, it kind of comes in here and make sure we got that little bit of shadow in here. We don't want to lose our little face shape. And a little bit of black right in here underneath the ear. A little bit of black underneath here. A bit of that slate blue that we had earlier. So the slate blue again is our primary cyan blue and our white. And a little bit of the black in there too, because it's the gray and the primary cyan blue that makes that slate blue. So you can have a little touch of that again, little tiny touches. Almost like little push and then pull. I'll touch those little sketches of color in there. We'll do a little bit of this white and primary yellow here with this all around his eyes very carefully. I'm gonna have to go back in and reinforce the eyes because it got a little bit covered up. That's okay. I can fix that. And a little bit of brown in here too, the shade in the middle. And a little bit of brown underneath here on the fin. And a little bit of black underneath that to keep that shade in there, the shadow. Come back in with that lighter yellow. A little bit of yellow in here. And a little bit of white. So let's squeegee out that color, let's grab some white. A bit more of that brown. It's going to create a little bit of shadow into here. And then more white right around the eye. Squeegee out that color and just grab some pure white, really highlight right in the middle here. Just going to go back and forth, the little tiny hair strokes. And a white goes across here. Pull down the strokes here of the hairs. A little bit of brown and orange. And those little ears. here. A little bit of that textured brown orange here. A little bit of texture underneath. This feels like little tiny parentheses, parentheses. And then at top, we're going to come in with more of that primary yellow and the white. Sweep that over the top again. And then again, more white. A little more slate. Like that in. Being very playful with the colors, just back and forth. Right here. And then go back in with the black. We're going to reinforce these sweet eyes again. Very carefully to get that round circle back in the eye because we got a little bit. Cover that. There. There's that fullness again, that cuteness. I think what else helps are the eyelashes over the top. Very powerful what they do. That little, just like eyelashes are important to us, they're also important to the beauty of the cow. So we're going to take a little bit brush. It's nice and twirled and clean. I've got the white right over the top. And I'm going to come in here and make some very delicate little eyelashes. But you act like you're lining the eye here. A little bit of liner, and then you actually pull down. Pull down a few of those. Same thing here on the other side. You're gonna act like you're lining the eyes. And then pull down. You let those little whiskers do it a few more times. Same thing here on baby cow. Little liner and then pull down. Another liner and then pull down. There's those little eyelashes that come over the top. Come back in and create. You can add little touches of more color in here, and the brown, and the peach. I got more white too. It's quite a bit more highlighted over the top. I'm just going to touch and then lightly pull down. And I'm going to feather back in more of this like fur over the top here. And you can do tiny little wispy hairs that come off the side too. And again, a lot of pure white and coming back in over the top. The center here. And a lot more white than you realize too comes in over the top to add those little, to accentuate. So do a little bit more black too in the shadow. And again, that little side push with the brush to kind of create those shadows again. And put a little bit more of that khaki color, which was the yellow and the brown. Underneath the eye in there. A little bit more of this black, and add the fullness of the eye here. And then something else you can do that's really pretty, it's not that evident here, but you can do little flash points on the eyes. I'm going to show you on the mommy. So I got this end here of the brush, that point right there, I can touch into the white. See there? And then I can just go straight down and make those little flash points in the eye. And it adds a lot of personality, I think. I need to wait for little baby to set up. He's a little too wet for that right now. Leave that coming out a little bit. Maybe a little bit more of this. Oh, pink. I just lost it there. Pink and my orange. Floral. I'm gonna touches of this in here too. Again, it was my primer magenta with the white and a little bit of orange. And that makes some fun floral that you can kind of push in here, little tiny strokes. And then we also have some fun violet that you can start to use here too. So I've got violet in here. Looks like this. Rinse out. And then we're going to add some white to that. And then a little bit of that primary cyan blue so that it takes it to more of what I call like a periwinkle color. We can do our little, we have a little flower over here. These little touches with little bit. And twirl the brush into that. And just kind of lightly kind of twirl and pull down. Little touches in there. I'm also going to do just little touches of that in the horns. And then this is also when we can start to kind of use our palette knife a little bit more. I'm going to take my palette knife here and I'm going to work it into this. Is that add a bit more blue. I'm just going to scrape it across here. A little bit more of that. Violet, white. scrape that up. And also to make this look more like a flower, before I forget it, go to a flower here. Right now it's not looking too much like a flower because I didn't do the center. So I'm gonna grab a little bit of this orange and a tad of the brown. We're gonna just do a little pop of orange right over the top. And then I'll take a little bit of this black and white, mix the two together. Pull down the little lines. You can do little scrapes of some of that in here, just very sparingly, kind of play with it a little bit. And then a little bit more of that primary blue in there and the white. Just have a light blue to it. So I scrape that up from the top, just add a little bit of fine texture. Again, flat side of the palette knife, and then just kind of push down lightly and then scrape up a little bit here. And keep in mind too that it's always a little bit different every time we do these paintings because it is a little bit of a playful process. And so this certainly isn't like photorealism, impressionism. And so it's very much something that is very organic and will change a lot every single time you do it. All right, so I've got my palette knife here again, and I'm going to grab just more of some pure white. And you can kind of play with this too and place this in the background and play with that texture over the surface. I'm not going to get too super close. We don't want to lose the top of the head and have it blend in. We want to keep a little bit of that contrast for the gray and the white of the hair on top there. So I'll just kind of work this palette knife work in as close as I can in the background. And I'm going to turn this where I can get a good vantage point here. Picking up a little bit more of that pure white. And just doing some fun scrapes in the background. You can also do some fun little bits of texture over the cow too. It's like we're gonna just pull down little touches of that white over the fur. So it gives some nice texture. Little touches and folds. There it is. Then we're gonna like touch and pull that down. I use the edge of that. I do a little bit more of a scrape there. And if you're getting into a real tiny spot like up here in the baby cat, you could do a little tiny, just barely touch. Be real careful there. It's a little bit tight in there. It's going to be real careful with that. A little bit of brown here. Like a little push and drag. Texture in those areas. A little bit of black. I'm going to do a little bit of that texture right over the top here. And don't forget to wipe when you need to switch between colors, because that could get kind of messy too. So maybe one little dot of white over here to match the one over here. Soften that up a little bit. And over the eyelashes just one more time here too. And a little bit of blue here. With a fun color for the shadow. And you can work back in while the paint's still wet. You can kind of work back in and softly blend those two together too. And add a little bit of water too, that helps it flow out into the space a little bit more. But a lot of going back and forth between these pretty little colors and working back and forth here. Building those layers. Coming back in and looking on over the white that still needs to be added in over the top. And there's just a lot of play that happens in here. Sometimes it's hard to know when to call it. My honey bear's making dinner and I'm smelling it, so I'm probably gonna have to call it pretty quick. So, all right, and then with your signature, that's something I actually prefer to do with my permanent marker when this all dries. So mine's still very wet, so I'm gonna wait on mine a little bit till after it completely dries. Or you can also use your little bit brush and you can paint on your signature as well. Now, what I would recommend there is to go ahead and make sure that you get it twirled into a nice fine point, and then you can dip into that color, twirl it into the color, and then you keep that nice fine point in there too. All right, yeah, looking good. And this is also one of those paintings too, where you can always put it up on the shelf and then you can find that you can come back to it and play and play and play into it for a while. So well, that is lovely and beautiful. I'm so glad y'all joined me here today for this awesome painting class. Looks beautiful, beautiful. All right, well, we're going to go ahead and stop here, even though you are welcome to continue playing and using your palette knife and building those layers over the top. But y'all have done a beautiful job. And again, everything that you need is in our painting kit at tipsyartist.com, and I'll leave a link below. And we just, again, so thankful for y'all and for y'all joining us here today. And we look forward to seeing you very soon. Toodles, much love.